The laughter cut through the room like broken glass, sharp and careless. And in that instant, I saw the exact moment a man realized his entire future was about to collapse. Nia Thompson had learned long ago how to keep her face still while her heart raced. I was standing near the open bar at my younger sister's engagement party, the clink of champagne flutes and the low hum of jazz filling the upscale rooftop in downtown Baltimore, when Marissa decided it was time to make me the joke. She had always loved an audience. The city lights reflected off her diamond ring as she raised her glass and smiled too wide. "I mean, we all know Naya," she said, eyes flicking to me. "Always so serious, always acting like she's better than us. Guess that's what happens when you grow up thinking you're special just because you're black and angry." The room went quiet in that awkward, electric way that follows cruelty. Someone coughed, someone else laughed nervously. I felt the familiar heat rise up my neck, the old ache of being reduced to a stereotype by the person who shared my childhood bedroom. I could smell citrus from my drink, hear my own pulse in my ears. Across the room, Marissa's fiancé, Evan, chuckled along, oblivious, his arms snug around her waist. I had not planned to come to this party. I had almost stayed home, curled up with case files and takeout, telling myself family drama was beneath me. But my mother had begged. "Just show up for an hour," she'd said. "It would mean a lot." So I came in a simple navy dress, hair pulled back, no robe, no title, just Naya, the older sister who had always been expected to swallow insults for the sake of peace. Marissa had been doing this my whole life. Little comments, little jokes about my skin, my hair, my voice, how I talked white when I got into law school, how I thought I was too good once I passed the bar. I had learned to let it roll off me, but something about the way she said it tonight, loud and sharp and public, made my stomach knot. I forced a smile and lifted my glass slightly. "Congratulations, Marissa," I said evenly. "I hope you're very happy." She smirked, clearly disappointed I hadn't snapped. "Oh, don't be so sensitive. I'm just kidding. Right, Evan?" Evan nodded, grinning. "Yeah, babe. She knows you don't mean anything by it." I looked at him then. Really looked. He was tall, clean-cut, expensive suit, the kind of man who had never worried about being judged before opening his mouth. He had introduced himself to me earlier with a firm handshake and a practiced charm, telling me he worked in finance and admired strong women. I wondered what he thought strong meant. The rest of the night blurred into polite conversations and forced smiles. I spoke with my aunt about her knee surgery, with my cousin about his new job. All the while, Marissa kept glancing at me, checking to see if her words had landed. They had, just not the way she expected. As the party wound down, Evan approached me near the elevators. "Hey, Naya," he said, lowering his voice. "I hope you didn't take that the wrong way. Marissa can be blunt." "I've noticed," I replied. He laughed awkwardly. "Anyway, it was nice meeting you. Maybe we'll see you at the wedding." "Maybe," I said, and watched him walk away, unaware that in less than 48 hours he would be standing in a courtroom, palms sweating, praying for mercy. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table, sunlight streaming through the blinds, a thick case file spread open in front of me. State versus Carter. Evan Carter. DUI with bodily injury, reckless endangerment, a mess of bad decisions made on a rainy night. The file had been assigned to my docket weeks ago. I hadn't connected the name until last night. Carter wasn't exactly rare, but the address matched, the age, the photo. I leaned back in my chair, letting out a slow breath. Judicial ethics ran through my mind automatically. I knew the rules. I knew when recusal was required. This case didn't involve Marissa. It didn't involve me personally. I had no financial interest, no prior relationship with Evan beyond a handshake at a party. Still, the universe had a twisted sense of timing. I thought about Marissa's laugh, about the way she said black and angry like it was a punchline. I wasn't angry. I was clear. Courtroom 3 was packed on Tuesday morning. Wooden benches creaked as people shifted, the air heavy with anticipation and the faint smell of coffee. I took my seat on the bench, robes settling around me like a familiar weight. When the bailiff called the case, Evan stepped forward with his attorney, confidence draining from his face as he finally looked up. Our eyes met. The color drained from his cheeks so fast I thought he might faint. His mouth opened slightly, then closed. He swallowed hard. His attorney glanced between us, confused. "Good morning, Mr. Carter," I said, my voice calm, professional. "Yes, Your Honor." Marissa wasn't there. She wouldn't be. This wasn't the kind of thing you bragged about on social media. This was the kind of thing you hoped would quietly go away. As the proceedings unfolded, I listened carefully. I always did. The facts were ugly. Evan had been drinking, he'd run a red light, a woman had been injured, her car totaled. He had money, a clean record, a team of lawyers ready to argue for leniency. At one point, his attorney requested a brief recess. I nodded and rose, retreating to my chambers. Inside, alone, I let myself feel it all. The irony, the anger, the strange, heavy sense of responsibility. This wasn't about revenge. It couldn't be. It was about truth. When we reconvened, Evan's hands were shaking. He kept stealing glances at me, as if hoping I'd suddenly turn back into just his fiancé's sister, harmless and silent. "I want to be clear," I said, addressing the courtroom. "This court does not consider wealth, status, or personal connections when determining accountability. Only actions." Evan flinched. I delivered my ruling with care, citing precedent, outlining consequences, mandatory rehabilitation, community service, license suspension, a sentence that reflected the seriousness of his choices without cruelty. As I spoke, I watched his shoulders slump, relief and fear tangling together. He'd expected worse. He'd hoped for better. Afterward, as people filed out, Evan lingered. "Your Honor," he said quietly, I didn't know about you." "I know," I replied. He hesitated. "I'm sorry for the other night." I met his eyes. "Be better," I said simply. Marissa called me that evening, her voice sharp. "Why didn't you tell me?" she demanded. "Why didn't you say you were the judge?" I smiled to myself, staring out at the city skyline. "I didn't ask," I said. She was quiet for a moment. "You embarrassed us." I thought about that, about public humiliation, about laughter like broken glass. "No," I said. "I held a mirror up. You just didn't like what you saw." We didn't speak for a while after that. Maybe we never would the same way again. But something had shifted. For once, I hadn't swallowed myself to keep the peace. I had stood exactly where I belonged, in full view, unflinching. And the next time someone laughed at my expense, I knew I'd remember the look on Evan's face when he realized who I was, and I'd know that silence was no longer my role.